Hello everyone, welcome to MML's podcast. Today is our official studio launch. My name is Zipho Majova and I will be your podcast host for today. And joining me is Dr. Benadette Aineamani, who is the executive for product and services. Benadette, hello.
Hello, hi Zippo.
You look stunning in your blue.
Thank you so much. You look stunning too.
Oh, thank you. So you are the first guest for today. And I think it's only fitting for you to just tell us, who Benadette is, a little bit about your background and why you're here today.
Okay, great. I think it would be very unfair if I don't start off by introducing myself as a born teacher. So I have a strong passion for education, and all my journey in school, I wanted to be a teacher, and I ended up a teacher. And I have many degrees, so I won't mention them, but I'm an educationist with up to PhD level. So I have a PhD in mathematics education.
Wow, fantastic. So Benadette, you mentioned all of these years where you've been an educator, and I'm sure you can imagine that from the time that you've been an educator up until now, the education space is rapidly changing, and particularly post the COVID era, what used to be imperative is no longer as imperative. So what would you say are the most pressing needs for learners and teachers today?
I think I'll begin off with the learners. So the most important thing for learners at the moment is making sure that we give them foundations that will help them learn better.
Yeah.
Because if you want to learn and you don't have the foundations, it will become very difficult because you don't have the prior knowledge to build on to learn new skills, especially in language and mathematics. Because if you're not able to read, your access to more information is limited. So I think the foundations for learning is what learners need the most. And then when you look at the other aspects like emotions, we need to teach learners how to navigate their emotional journey, because that's challenging with the context that we see, especially in some of the communities. Learners need to know how to engage with the challenges that they face. So I think that is very important. And of course, COVID came with its challenges that we still seated within some communities. So we need to make sure that learners have the support that they need from an emotional perspective. And then we also know that when you go into schools or in many classrooms, we teach in English, and many learners don't have access to that language of teaching and learning, which is English. So I think we need to make sure that learners understand the language that we are teaching them in and not take it for granted that one day they'll wake up and understand it. So that's for learners. And then for teachers, I think the biggest need at the moment is what I would name pedagogical innovation, because there's a lot that teachers need to know. But if we do not help them from a publishing perspective of helping them see how can they innovate how they teach, because the traditional ways of chalk and talk, I think, are almost gone. Of course, we still see them in many classrooms, but I think they need to be able to innovate pedagogically, of course, with the learner at heart. And I think that's the biggest for the teacher.
I'm glad you speak about innovation and the fact that, chalk and talk is gone. I think it segues beautifully into my next question. With all of this being said, how is MML adapting its products and services to ensure that it stays relevant for the learner and the teacher of 2025?
Right. So at MML, we don't, the one thing that we avoid is what I would name FOMO, so fear of missing out. So we do not go with the No FOMO. We do not go with the next shiny thing. We make sure that whatever we bring to the teacher is actually indeed relevant, and we use many frameworks to guide us. And I'll just share the SUMMER model, which is substitution, augmentation, redefine, and augment. So when you look at the SUMMER model, you need to first check, if I'm looking at a teacher's classroom, what do I need to substitute with an innovative idea? Because if something is not broken, don't fix it. And that's a reality, especially in the classrooms. Because when you see the whole technological aspect in teaching and learning, if you go into a classroom and say, no, stop using chalk and talk, here is a laptop, teachers will not just adapt to it. So at MML, we first understand how can technology or how can innovative ideas blend into what teachers are already doing, so that we can help them teach better rather than putting more things for them to learn, which will not even help them. So the frameworks of making sure that we integrate whatever we are innovating into the classroom very well is what guides us, and also making sure that we don't create things for teachers, we create anything we create is with the teacher. We do not create for the teacher. So we have to make sure that the teachers are on the table when we are innovating and deciding on what we want to take forward. And that has been very helpful, because sometimes you come up with a great idea. I mean, I was in the classroom in 2009. That's when I left the classroom.
Wow.
I cannot say that I know what happens in the classroom 100%.
Yeah.
So you have to bring the teacher and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking from my experience, from the theoretical perspective. Practically, how will it help you in the classroom? And that is very important for us at MML.
Wow. Yeah. So from being a teacher in 2009 to now leading a content team that produces content in 11 languages. I can imagine that it's already difficult to lead a publishing team that produces one language, but you do for 11. So how do you ensure that you stay consistent throughout and that the quality remains of top notch?
So publishing in 11 languages, plus the 12th, which is sign language, which we are attempting to start delivering content for all languages and not just the 11, is a challenging aspect that MML values and embraces.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you can easily do, because finding the right authors, finding everything that you need to do is not very easy. So what we normally do is we make sure that we have the strongest pool of authors, and the people that source those authors are our strong publishers in-house. We have a very strong publishing team that is always looking for the best authors. So we don't just work with any authors, we work with the best in class, especially when it comes to multilingual aspects that we need to pull into the textbooks. So we make sure we have a pool of authors in all the languages that we want to deliver in. And then also our publishing processes are very strict. So we don't just create the book and say, here, the book is ready. So it follows a very strategic process for checking that we've done everything. And then the author, publisher, and editorial relationship is very important. Yeah. It has to be collaborative. So when the author writes their manuscript, we don't take it verbatim. We put in review processes. We make sure that the publisher that is publishing the book understands what they're publishing. And they also bring in the editorial team that comes in to say, okay, how about we look at it from this perspective? This language is too low for a grade 1, maybe put it higher. So all those aspects are collaborative in the process of the author, publisher, and the editorial team.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned processes. What would you say, in addition to the processes, are the key strategies to achieving quality, and also just making sure that MML responds, to cultural issues within this publishing space?
I think what is very important is engaging the people that will use the content, especially when you talk about the context and culture, because we all have different contexts, we all have different experiences. So I cannot impose my experience in a textbook and say, no, but it's relatable because I can relate to it. Yeah. So engaging with the teachers, engaging with the communities, our parents that are responsible for the learners. So we have review processes that allow external people from the community to engage with our materials before we publish them. So our authors are already in the communities, but then we go and look for other people that we give the materials to and say, do you think this is inclusive? With, of course, a checklist. And then in most cases, they'll say yes, but in some instances, they'll say no, and they'll tell us why, and then we'll try to fill in the gaps. So engaging with the actual people that will use the materials and not just the author that thinks your context is a context for everyone has been a very important journey as we try to be inclusive.
Oh, great. Yeah. I want to move on to speaking about AI. So we know that it's, there's a lot of discourse around AI, particularly being, moving from and kind of transitioning from being this publishing house, but also kind of integrating AI. And it's quite evident that the vision of MML going forward does include AI. But also, simultaneous to that, there's a conversation around ethics and using that responsibly. So what would you say MML is doing to ensure that AI is being used responsibly, ethically, and kind of human-centered?
So when it comes to AI, it's a very interesting topic, which is also very dear to my heart, and I'm actually currently pursuing a PhD in artificial intelligence.
Great, so I'm asking the right person.
Yes. And why I say that it's very important is because from my experience as a teacher, and also now as within the publishing world, if you leave AI to guide you and do everything for you, in the next few years you won't be in a very good space,
Absolutely.
especially as an educator or a publisher. And I believe at MML we are very, very intentional about making sure that AI literacy is embedded in our company. From everyone that does everything, we make sure that people understand what is artificial intelligence and how do you use it, how does it impact you. So we're not leaving it to chance that one day someone will be walking or doing something and they find out about AI and learn about AI, because it's a very complex scenario around AI intelligence. So AI is going rapidly, but the literacy on how to use AI is very slow when you look at how it's been incorporated in different societies and the community, especially in education. So at MML, AI literacy is very important for us. We make sure that we educate the publishers, the editorial team, the production team on how do you use AI and why, and not just use AI for the sake of using AI. So we're ensuring that we are not passive users of AI by understanding what it means. And that's why I started the journey. And of course, my team is also following, and we're making sure that we covered on that aspect. Then from a perspective of making sure that we use it responsibly, I think the starting point is awareness. How do you use AI and why do you use AI? And also looking at, there are many AI tools, so which one do you draw on? Because there's also the issues of biasness and transparency, which you don't just use any tool. You have to make sure that you use a tool where you're able to understand what content was it trained on, especially from an education perspective. And if it's hallucinating or giving wrong information, what do you fall back on? And I think that's why we also started the journey of Maski, to make sure that we train our own AI tool so that our stakeholders who are teachers and learners are able to have a tool that will guide them, and not, because they'll come to us, they're using our textbooks, they'll come to us to ask what can they use. We should be in a position to tell them, no, don't use that tool. Here is a trusted tool that we can actually tell you what we trained it on, and we can confidently tell them that you can embed it in your teaching and learning. And I think that's the journey that we are on at the moment at Maskiverse.
Benadette, tell me a little bit more about the Maski tool that you speak of, and how it actually supports curriculum-aligned learning.
Okay. So Maski is a very, very interesting tool for us, and we've been on this journey for over 2 years now. So it's not something that we started overnight, because it's not an easy one. And why we're not doing it very fast is because we're ensuring that the teacher is embedded in what we do. So it's a teacher-led training rather than training the tool for the teacher. So we are training the tool with the teacher in mind, and also the teacher involved. So we have the humans that are helping us, making sure that the publishing processes that we use in a textbook content creation are also embedded in the AI tool development. So checking that the content is correct, making sure it's CAPS aligned, and also making sure that what it gives to the learners and the teachers is actually what they need, rather than what is easy to do. So all those things are being put in that. And the biggest thing for us when it comes to AI and teaching is the human-centered interaction. How will the learner or the teacher interface Maski? And that has informed on how we decide what we put in, what we don't put in. So you find it as practice questions. We have our math tutor for grades 7 to 12, because we know that tutoring is very important. Any learner in this world, not just South Africa, would want a one-on-one tutor, but we know how expensive it is. So it's those things that we know that AI can do, that Maski is now taking on and making sure that we deliver them in a trusted way.
Yeah. I mean, it's great that you mentioned all of these things, Benadette, but I do also want us to kind of address the quote-unquote elephant in the room. I think there's a narrative about AI and how it's there to replace people's jobs. And I want you to speak a little bit more, particularly from the perspective of a teacher. You know, what would you say to a teacher who's out there and saying that, you know, I'm scared of this AI, you know, it's exciting, but at the same time it frightens me because it might just replace my job. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. So my thoughts on this is actually to talk to the teacher out there who thinks AI is here to replace them, just to remind them. So when we go to school to study teaching, the one thing that why they teach us philosophy, psychology, sociology, and all those things is to inform us and make us know that teaching is not a script. Teaching is a relationship. And the learner can never make a relationship with the tool because the tool is not in situ. The tool is not in the classroom to read the room and say, oops, this learner is hungry today, or the learner is crying. The tool would never know, but the teacher is there and seeing what is going on and then doing spontaneous teaching, because you can set up a very nice lesson and then you arrive in your classroom and you realize that your learners are not ready for the lesson that you've brought them to do, or you might ask them a question and then they answer otherwise. The tool is not able to engage with all those things, so there is no time when AI will replace a teacher, because teaching is not scripting a lesson and sending it to the learners. It's a relationship that you need to harness and engage and attentively and consciously engage with the learners in the process.
Yeah. So if we are confident that AI is not going to replace the teacher, what is MML then doing to ensure that AI supports the teacher and does not overwhelm them?
So what MML is doing, the starting point, is making sure that the teacher is involved in the training.
Yes.
So the teacher has to inform, okay, what do I want to do with this tool that I've been given? And that's why I shared with the summer model, because the summer model is a model that is actually in the South African professional digital learning framework for integrating digital in the classroom, which says before you do anything, you must check. If I come into this classroom, I want to substitute something, but what is that thing? Before you just substitute something that needs to actually be in. Like let's say you're developing gross motor skills for learners, but now you give them tablets to just swipe. So they are not able to do hand grips and all those things. Yeah. So checking the actual aspect that you need to replace and not just replace everything. And the only person that can help us with that is the teacher, to tell us, you're in the classroom, what are you struggling with? Oh, I'm struggling with creating a quick assessment for formal checking or a class activity. Then we work with the teacher to create that using the AI, and rather than us saying, here is something, just go put it in your classroom, AI is here to replace you. So we're not taking that route. So the human in the loop is very important for us to make sure that what we bring out will not overwhelm the teacher, but rather simplify their job.
Great. And maybe to perhaps add on to the confidence, can you share an example of a practical tool or unplugged activity that has had a positive response with either learners and teachers?
I think I'll stick with Maski.
Of course.
So, so with Maski, one of the features of Maski is that a teacher can create an assessment in minutes.
Wow.
So having been a teacher before, when you're typing that assessment, you have to look for diagrams, then you have to look for the triangle, then you look and you don't know. Not many teachers know the tools to go, like, let's say GeoGebra, I'll go click and get it. Yeah. So what Maski does, you click and you get your Bloom's taxonomy is already embedded in the questions that the AI will give you. It gives you the level of questions and the topics and everything, so, and it's all caps aligned. And this is in minutes. You get your fully typed assessment that the teacher then will have to review, because we're not saying the teacher must just take that assessment and administer it, but the teacher has an option to say, okay, let me review the questions and take the ones which I feel learners will engage with, or let me redo and create another assessment. But it's a quick creation of an assessment, which is not an easy task, which could have taken 3 hours to type or even few weeks to collect all the resources to create a valid assessment to give learners. So the assessment creation is one thing I would share that teachers have embraced very well and are very excited about it.
Lovely, lovely. I can't wait to dig in, although I'm not a teacher. I can't wait to dig in as well. I want to speak about mathematics. I know that's one of your fortes. There's a growing narrative that mathematics isn't, language neutral. What are some of the challenges do you think that the learners face in the understanding of the mathematical language?
I think the major challenge that I would share around mathematics and language, and the challenge that I saw firsthand when I was in the classroom and also when I lectured at Wits University many years ago, is that learners will know what they're doing, but they don't know how to explain it. So you see the learner's answer and you ask them, why did you write this? Maybe wrong or right, but they cannot communicate their mathematics reasoning. And I investigated that in my master's degree, and it was a very interesting one, because learners were really struggling. Even those that know the correct answer cannot explain it. And if you cannot explain something, then that's a problem. Either you crammed it or you stumbled upon it by mistake, and now if you're supposed to transfer it to another topic, then you're stuck because you don't understand why you did this one. So how will you move it to the next part? And when it comes to language, that's a critical one, because you need to be able to communicate your mathematics understanding in order for you to engage with it and own it, so that you can transfer it to another topic, because every topic is linked in mathematics, so you need to be able to understand one topic in order to study the next one.
Do you think the issue around mother tongue plays a role in that?
I think it does, because when you look at some aspects, so there are a few scenarios here. So there's one where there's multilingualism, so where you need to help learners have different languages to understand what is going on, because the language of teaching and learning is not their mother tongue. So now they come into a math classroom, you're teaching in English. They have to first understand the English in order to access the mathematics. So that's one aspect. But then there's also the aspect of learners who are still trying to learn the language English. They may not only know English, because I've seen some instances where parents who come and say, but I've never spoken to my child in any language other than English. But maybe they've not yet mastered the language, because they have to learn the language in order to use it, but they're also in the math classroom. So the learners that are actually struggling with the language. Then there are learners that are struggling with the language of mathematics, because mathematics is a language. So if I just put an equal sign anywhere, it means something, because the person that is reading it mathematically will say, no, you can't just put an equal sign all over the place. So those three things I think are critical. And when you look at mother tongue bilingual-based education that is being rolled out in schools, I think it will play a very big role to give learners a linguistic capital. You know, something to draw back on when you don't know the language of teaching and learning. Then at least you say, oh, in my language it's called this. Okay, then you come back. And that's why they're saying bilingual. So they have access to the language of teaching and learning, but they also have access to their mother tongue. Yeah.
To me, this sounds like an issue of access. And so just to go back a little bit about the AI issue, how is AI, or should I say Maski, being trained to explain mathematics using clear and accessible language to kind of curb the issue around, the maths language situation?
So I think to use Maski to do that, I think it starts by understanding what you're trying to do, because there are some tools that you look at and they're actually dumbing down instead of trying to simplify, because if you dumb down, then you're disadvantaging the learner. And as we train Maski, those are some of the things that we've been looking at to make sure that when you look at, because our dream is to have a personalized learning journey for every learner in South Africa using Maski, especially in subjects such as math and then science as well. So when you look at that aspect, we need to make sure that the language is not dumbed down, but rather simplified for the learner. So, for example, using some of the things that we see in English, like high-frequency words, bring it back, even if it's grade 10. Use those concepts that learners were taught when they were taught English in grade 1, 2, 3. Bring it in grade 10. Teach them high-frequency words, but within the mathematics sentences that you're bringing. Shorten the sentences. Don't use unnecessary English if it's not needed, because mathematics is a language. It can speak for itself. Teach them the math language, and then use the English only when it's required for you to explain the language, because there are some times when teachers or even textbooks or even AI tools over-explain, but these children are struggling with the language. So simplifying that language to make sure that you use the tools of teaching learners how to read as they learn the language. But of course, Maski is also looking at an aspect of multilingualism, making sure that we don't just deliver to English, but delivering to all the 11 languages and making sure learners have access to that as well.
Great. I think that answers the linguistic gaps question that I was about to ask. Benadette, thank you very much. This has been great. Any last words regarding, AI and the vision of MML moving forward?
I think the vision of MML is to continue to support teachers and making sure that they are with us on the journey and we are not just alone and building for them instead of building with them. And of course with the learners to make sure that they must watch out for Maski. I think Maski is going to be their buddy for life, from ECD up to higher education, and it's a promise that MML is giving to the stakeholders that have been with us on this journey from many years ago, and I think it's a very bright future ahead with artificial intelligence.
And how can a learner or teacher that's interested in saying, I want to jump onto Maski, where can they go to access it?
I think very simple. They can go to maski.co.za and then they'll find everything that they need.
Maski.co.za.
Yes.
Benadette, thank you very much. This was absolutely lovely. I can't wait to jump into Maski and see how South Africa receives it, and hopefully outside of South Africa receives the Maski tool. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.